Welcome to Afternoon Express. Now, it's no secret that life can be full of challenges and we all go through our ups and downs. Whether you're in a relationship or going through a divorce, it might just be time to hit the reset button. So tonight, we're going to tackle all these topics, including giving yourself a wardrobe reset. Now, on social media, we would like to know from you, sometimes life needs a reset button. So how do you hit the reset button in your life? Please do remember to use the hashtag Afternoon Express in all of your comments. But first, we're going to tackle the thorny issue of divorce and the impact it can have on your mental health. Over to you, Z.
As the saying goes, a change is as good as a holiday. But when it comes to the most intimate part of our lives, such as our relationships, it's not always that easy. And joining us is clinical psychologist Lindile Mbata, who's here to discuss divorce and the profound impact it can have on our mental health. Welcome back, Slee.
Thank you for having me, Sarita.
So the stats show that in South Africa in particular, divorce rates are increasing exponentially. And I know that globally, they say half of first marriages end in divorce. That's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
right. Why is that happening?
Sure, I think it's so complex to actually figure out why this is happening. I think there's many, many reasons why. One of which is that, as society, I think our values are changing a lot. So
is that a good thing or?
Good and bad.
Okay.
Good and bad. I think in terms of marriage, we've seen the change in values really impact marriages in this way, in that, the old sort of family values that were there is not so much as present. We might not think about it in the same way that we did perhaps 50, 60 years ago. So the change in values is one, but I think also life has become difficult and complex in many, many ways that it hasn't been in years before this as well. So financially, there's a lot more strain on people than there used to be, emotionally, socially. So I think it's just that life looks very, very different than it did, and so marriages are ultimately going to look different as well.
I read this interesting article recently in Forbes magazine that said, it basically said that 75% of marriages that are ending on a whole are ending due to a lack of commitment. But a big part of that is also infidelity, of course. Then there is financial discernment in the relationship. There's gender-based violence. There's so much more. And I think back in the day, a lot of women in particular would push through, whereas women are so much more independent right now and have a voice and have agency over what they are willing to tolerate and not tolerate. But that aside, we can't get away from the fact that going through a divorce, whether you choose it or not, is a grieving process that definitely impacts your mental health, right? How does one stay in the healthiest position when you are in that position?
Yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. You make such a good point about it being a grieving process. I mean, it's a loss. It's a loss of a very significant relationship, a loss of a family, for some people. So I think that for one, you can think about it in the same way you would possibly, going into it. We prepare a lot, right, for building families, don't we?
Yes.
We have so many conversations about what our hopes and dreams are, where we want to live, where we want to get married, and all these things. And I think when it comes to divorce, we often don't think about it in the same terms, in terms of preparation, the emotional and practical preparation for it. So I, would advise anybody who is contemplating this or is having any challenges in relationships to really think about in terms of, okay, how do I prepare myself for a process like this where my family might have to separate, or I might have to separate from my partner. So perhaps getting the support structures in early and not waiting for, the critical moment to happen before you then get those structures in. So whether it's seeing a counselor, whether it's starting to speak to family members, trusted people that you have in your life, you don't necessarily want to share with every single person, but I think already how do I prepare myself emotionally for this, practically, possibly financially, legally. You might just want to really have those structures in place before you make that decision. And just to also be able to anticipate, what could the possible outcomes be.
That's lovely. I don't know if you recall Gwyneth Paltrow and is it Chris Martin?
Yes.
Made famous the term conscious uncoupling, which I really resonate with, and I think is so beautiful to consciously uncouple, but the reality, the stark reality, is that so many divorces end so ugly, and both people are very seldom on the same page. So this wonderful process that you speak of in terms of preparation, as we prepare so beautifully for a wedding, we should, with the same kind of consciousness, prepare for our separation, yet we don't do that. So if one doesn't have a partner that is as conscious as you are, how do you navigate that process on your own when you know that you're not going to get support in terms of the conscious uncoupling?
Right, yeah. So I think, you might want to get help, even if it is on your own, on sort of starting to think about how am I going to have these conversations to say, okay, the relationship, I don't know if I can, it's sustainable anymore for myself, for us as a family. And then, possibly talking about what might the implications for us be. I think that sometimes when it comes to the separation and, the divorce actually happening, often it's sort of like it almost feels as if it has to happen in the heat of some moment. Yeah. It's because maybe there's been an infidelity, it's because there's been a betrayal. And we're not necessarily talking about it beforehand to sort of say, well, you can sense that. I think for a lot of people when a divorce is impending, very often there's an emotional separation that's already started happening.
Yes.
So I think that getting the support for yourself, even as a person who is just contemplating it, it might be a relief just to actually speak to someone to say, you know what, I'm thinking about it. I don't know what to do yet, but I'm thinking about it, and how can I start to perhaps have this conversation even with my partner to say, this is where my mind is at. Can we still do anything about it? Or, should we actually be looking at ultimately going our separate ways?
Yeah. Thank you, Slee. And then I want to ask you, if there are children involved, what is your advice regarding that?
Sure. Yeah, I think, divorces can have the biggest impact on children. The change in behavior that you can see in mood, in their performance, even at school, and how they interact with their friends. So I really would advise that we definitely keep an eye on the kids as a priority throughout the process. Sometimes you don't want to preempt too much of how the kids are going to deal with it. Kids might also be relieved when, in processes like this, when they happen, they might actually feel, oh, thank goodness it's finally happened, and they might be okay. But just to keep an eye on them and take note of any drastic changes in behavior, any changes in sort of academic performance at school, if they act out, if they withdraw a lot more than they did before. But if anything looks to you just a little bit off in terms of how your child might normally be, then I would suggest perhaps even a counselor, whether it's through the school first, but if you can do it privately as well, that's great. But just maybe keep an eye on it, and don't force it, don't preempt it.
Yeah.
Just kind of take stock and see what happens.
I like that. I'm definitely an advocate of counselling forever, for always. Going there with maintenance and service for yourself and your family is vital. Thank you so much once again. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. While divorce can be difficult, taking care of your mental health shouldn't be. So we hope that these insights by Slee has provided you with empowerment, that you know that you need to prioritize your mental health when it comes to navigating change or having to hit that reset button. After the break, we are sitting down with social media mogul Babalwa Mqaqiso, and we give you tips on how to reset your style for 2024.
Our pharmacies are on the front line of healthcare. This is Pharmacy of the Week.
From a young age, I've been inspired to be a pharmacist. My uncle was a pharmacist, and he started the High Perform group here in Richards Bay. We've been here serving the community now for 20 years. For me, serving the community, to helping the customers, it always inspires me if they go out and they feel they've been helped by us. That's why a community pharmacy is such a valuable asset for a community in a rural area, because accessibility of our pharmacy for the general public is such a great asset. We were looted in July 2021, and the pharmacy was burned down. After a week, we started in our church in Richards Bay in a small room to help the chronic patients of the pharmacy. So we made up the medication and sent it with a few of my staff members to eSikaweni every day, where the customers came and pick up their medication. So after about 3 months, we got up the temporary premises in eSikaweni again, where we helped the broader community again for 18 months. And last year, August, the mall was ready and we came back to the mall again.
When we had the opportunity to move back into the new pharmacy, we decided that when a customer comes in here, we want them to just experience that tranquil, homey feeling. It's not like they're just in a row that they're being pushed through. They're in an atmosphere where they're being cared for, and we really want to help them just to get better.
Pharmacy of the Week, proudly brought to you by Adcock Ingram OTC, sponsors of Brave, inspiring communities, one pharmacy at a time.
We've been long in the game, healing South Africa one allergy at a time. All the sneezing, runny nose, itching of nose and throat, we've left no stone unturned. Until finally, South Africa recognized us. You've given us the courage to continue to do what we do best. Live, work, play, sleep allergy-free with Allergex Non-Drowsy. Ask your pharmacist for the full allergy range. Brought to you by Adcock Ingram OTC, sponsors of Brave.
Babalo Mcaciso is so many things. She's a full-time content creator, an influencer with over 300,000 Instagram followers, the founder of B&M Loungewear, and the mother of 2 boys. But also, Mzansi, we've got her on the loft. Yay! Yay! My fave, wearing my fave color. You look so chic, you look so young, energetic. I am so obsessed with you and everything that you do. But you are quite literally an example of someone who's been able to pivot, who's been able to press the reset button in their lives and rebuild, rebrand in a sense.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us a little bit about your journey from marketing to where you find yourself now?
Yeah, so I actually studied integrated marketing communications at the AAA School of Advertising. And I've always wanted to be in the industry.
Yep.
Since I was a little girl, I used to enter beauty pageants, I used to dance, and then I found an amazing school called the AAA School of Advertising, studied in advertising and graduated, did a BA, worked in advertising for about 6 years.
Sure, 6 years.
How crazy, time really flies. I worked in advertising before I went into content creation on a full-time scale. So I left my job in 2021 because during COVID, started a YouTube channel. It picked up drastically. Everyone was at home, so they were really interested in like digital marketing and digital platform.
Yes.
Which was the breaking point of when I actually started getting really busy, started getting so many campaigns, and then I was unable to keep up my full-time advertising job. At some point, I would have to lie. I'd have to lie at work to be like I have a shoot and stuff, but I'd lie and make up stories. So it wasn't sustainable, and then I was like, you know what, let me bite the bullet and go for this full time because I really love it. I've always wanted to do this. So then I left my job, and the rest is history.
You are no stranger also to the term. I mean, this is quite literally one of your mantras or things that you say.
Yes.
You fall, you make a mistake, you get back up
100%.
again. Can you unpack that for me?
So I always say to people always see the final product. I've fallen so many times, and a lot of the people these days don't see that there is failure, and for you to be able to succeed, you have to fail. And when you do fail, I always say this, you learn a certain amount of times of how not to repeat the same mistake and how to do things differently. So like myself, I've had to go through a lot of different challenges, a lot of failures, a lot of rejection, a lot of no's, but that didn't deter me from going after my dreams and going after the big thing that I want, which is my living truth, what I am living today. So people need to be comfortable with failure. If you want to succeed in life, you need to learn to be comfortable with failing and be comfortable with making mistakes. So that has been my journey, and that's why I was able to get to where I am today.
Resilience is absolutely important within anything that you decide to do. I mean, it's so important, this conversation that we're having. Just last night, I was watching a fellow YouTuber, and she's from the UK. Her name is Miriam Musa, and she started a whole cosmetic line last year. It was huge, it was massive, super exciting. Bombed. She has now decided to pivot, rebrand the entire company, and is now looking for 2024 to be a brand new thing.
Wow.
That comes with vulnerability, though.
100%.
Being able to acknowledge that I failed, that didn't work out, and that is something that you believe in. Honesty as a content creator. Do you believe that that's what sets you apart from others?
I feel like this is really, I say that this is what makes me stand out in the industry. I feel like the industry now has become very, what's this word called? Condensed.
Yeah.
With so many people trying to be the same thing, people selling a fake lifestyle, people making young girls in high school feel like they are not good enough, that they're not doing enough, making people wanting to chase a lifestyle that is not realistic, that they did not even work for. So I feel like what sets me apart in this industry is sharing my truth, sharing honesty, that and some days I'm not really great, you know. Some days I'm not really that confident about myself. Some days I don't love myself as much as I should. I'm very honest to young girls. I encourage them that they need to work hard.
Absolutely.
Nothing comes easy in life. And for you to have the life that you want to live, you need to really push yourself and work really, really hard.
We are in April, celebrating freedom. I mean, what does freedom mean to you?
Freedom for me is actually, it means to be liberated. We are so privileged as a country to be where we are today. And we are honestly living our ancestors' wildest dreams, because for a Black South African woman to be able to pivot in such a space, such as having my own business, managing my own time, being free and not tied to the traditional form of success, the fact that I don't have to be a medical doctor to be successful, I don't have to be a lawyer to be successful, but I'm thriving as a Black woman that is able to open her own business, that is able to have content creation as a form of income and as a business. And I feel like we as South Africans now have the privilege and opportunity to live that truth, which is so amazing. So freedom to me is
All of that.
all of that. And it's actually so close to my heart, because the people before us really fought hard for us to be able to be where we are today, you know, to be women that are thriving, to be men as well that are thriving, that are able to have their own businesses and do amazingly well.
I absolutely love touching base with you. Not only that, but just getting those pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much, Babalo.
Thank you so much for having me.
Babalo's success didn't happen overnight. She worked very hard, reset her life a few times, and is a real inspiration for us all. Resetting your life after ending a friendship or relationship can be hard, but it can also be beautiful. Clinical psychologist Usli Mbata joins us once again, and together we will uncover the practical strategies and empowering insights to support individuals in resetting and rebuilding their lives after ending a relationship. Thanks for joining us again, Sli.
Always a pleasure.
Now, it is so incredibly important to be able to reflect, take stock, and kind of assess the relationships that you have in your life. I know for myself, COVID was a big time out for me to kind of suss out, who do I have in my life, who builds me up and who breaks me down. How important is that frequent revisiting of the relationships in your life?
Yeah, I think it's so crucial. You know, I think often as people, we're doing it in times of crisis. And we're not also doing it when things are just okay and we're just getting along with it. So I think it's very, very important that even if you're not doing it with your partner, but that you're definitely doing it internally, you're having a reflective process, you're giving yourself the time to be able to do this. So as regularly as you possibly can. I mean, usually we all have a moment in a weekend somewhere, that we can kind of sit down and think about this. And perhaps you can even just now and then have a kind of a conversation with your partner. Say, you know what, how are you doing? Actually, how are you doing? Checking in. Absolutely, checking in to just see how you're feeling. You know what, maybe even if you're more stressed than usual, see how that's impacting the relationship, you know. But the open conversation, the fact that you can have an open conversation about it is the most important.
How are we able to discern whether a relationship is still fulfilling and is still healthy for you? What signs should we look out for?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's some practical physical signs, like if you're actually losing sleep, for instance, you know, over things that are happening in a relationship. And this happens sometimes, I think, more obviously with work. But it can happen with friendships too. It can happen in romantic relationships. And you can find that you just feel that you're being stretched a little too much. It's a little too much is being asked of me in this situation. So if you see that your mood is changing, if you see that you perhaps becoming resentful when you're being asked to do certain things, or every time you have to go and approach a particular person or a particular situation, perhaps it's time just to look at it a little bit more closely.
I can agree with that. But sometimes it's not that easy to be able to identify a relationship that you kind of just need to let go of. What are some of those contributing factors that make people stay, whether it's an unhealthy relationship or a work situation? What are some of those things that make it so difficult to say goodbye?
Yeah, well, I would say one of the biggest ones that I've experienced personally, you know, and I'll say anecdotally, is the fear of what is going to happen. You know, the fear, for example, I lose the consistency in my life because this relationship is gone. So things might be really, really different. I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I'm afraid of what people are going to say. I mean, in Zulu, we have this the whole thing, like, if, you know, if either I change this relationship or I bring this particular thing about in my life, even if it means bringing to an end a particular relationship with a certain person. So I think the fear, the anticipation very often contributes to it. Sometimes it's financial dependence, sometimes it's emotional dependence that we have on a person, even if they are toxic in our lives. So these are the things that we really need to look at a bit closely and actually ask ourselves, like, why am I still here?
How then do we end the relationship with compassion and respect, both for the other party and for yourself?
Yeah, you know, I often encourage people to not make any drastic actions while they're in the most emotional, while they're still the most emotional about a particular issue, about a particular person or situation they find themselves in. So sometimes it really helps to process the emotions first, and then you can sort of have what is a sensible or, you know, not as heated conversation about it. You might want to write some things down. And I think writing it down also helps you to really, really put your thoughts out on paper. You can see what it is, and you can formulate the thoughts about it a little bit better so that by the time you have the conversation, you've just considered probably more than once what it is that you're going to say. Talking to someone else about it really helps. It helps that you have had somebody else hear what it is that you're going to say.
To kind of say, am I crazy?
Yes.
Is it just me?
Is it just me? Or, you know, and sometimes I find that it's very validating too, because you can think that what's happening in your head is very exaggerated, but actually after a conversation with someone, you find that, oh my goodness, actually maybe I've been sitting on this way too long. So definitely having a process in between to mediate it, whether it is you slowing yourself down to write about it, to think about it, to speak to someone about it. But I would say don't act on it the moment that you feel something. First, sit on that feeling and see what it is actually trying to show you.
You know, Slee, at the top of your answer, you spoke about you first need to kind of dig deep, assess your feelings. How is Balisa feeling about the specific person and the ending of this relationship? For myself, that automatically brings up feelings of guilt. I feel kind of bad that I'm letting go of someone who's been part of any stage of my life. How does one then manage those feelings of guilt and uncertainty when they've made that decision? And what other practical tips? I mean, you spoke about physically writing down the feelings so that when you have the conversation, you know exactly what to say. What other practical tips and techniques can we use?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely speaking to someone about this, I can't stress enough the importance of having some kind of counseling, right? So for some people, it is with a spiritual counselor in a church. It's somebody in your community. It might be an aunt that you know. But having another voice in your head other than yourself is really, really crucial. Guilt is so normal as well as a feeling that comes up in situations like this. And I think often we can personalize it a little too much. So the normalizing process of that is incredibly important. So I think the moment that you're able to be outside of your own head, perhaps have a conversation with someone else, perhaps get a little bit of counsel on that particular issue, and recognize why the guilt is coming up too. Are you just a person who might be very accommodating of other people?
A people pleaser.
Yes, you know, guilt comes up sometimes for very valid reasons, but sometimes we also have such a thing as misplaced guilt. It's there, and just because it's there doesn't mean you always have to believe it and go with it. So you need to understand the role that the guilt itself is playing, I think, before you decide to act on it one way or the other.
It seems as if self-policing, reflection, and also community is extremely important when being able to end a very important relationship. Slee, it's always such a pleasure to be able to touch base with you and just unpack such big topics. Ngiyabonga siswam.
Thank you for having me.
Now, please do remember, healing and moving forward after a relationship has ended is a gradual process, and it's okay to take it one step at a time. Be patient with yourself. Practice self-compassion and trust that with time and effort, you will emerge stronger and more resilient than ever.
We're in Zanzibar for Tropical Island of Treasure. Are you? Did you just swim here from South Africa? There's an easier way to find fame and your share of a smooth R1 million fortune. Simply upload your audition to social media, explain why you're a match for our celebs. Add the hashtag Tropica and tag @MyTropica, and we could see you in Zanzibar. Buy a Tropica now and enter to be on the island.
I now have the privilege of being joined by visionary founder of the Movement Lab, Lisa Palmer, with a trailblazing spirit and a passion for empowering others. Join us as we explore Lisa's entrepreneurial journey as she shows us a few easy exercises to get you moving. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Lisa, I personally am so inspired by you and your what I can only describe as a motivational space, the Movement Lab. How did that come about?
It came about 20 years ago.
Wow.
So that's how long I've been in the business for. And I actually am from Port Elizabeth. And I started a little studio basically in my back garden and like a little shed outside, and then moved into my lounge and then took over my dining room. And so it kind of progressed, and then I needed a bigger space. But I actually come from an artistic background. So I come from a photography background. And then I started as a client. And I ended up loving it, and I was actually going through a divorce at that time.
Okay.
And it just kind of, by moving my body, gave me the clarity and to be able to kind of see what I needed to do, and gave me the strength. So it just changed my life in a way that I never anticipated.
Yes.
So I went from that artistic background into human movement, and then so it progressed into me teaching others to become instructors, and then we moved to Cape Town. And
beautiful. Now, today's show is all about resetting, and everything you said there is about the amount of times you've had to reset in your life, which is really powerful.
Yes.
Where did you get that strength from? You know, after your divorce, coming from another city, to know that you can do this and to grow as you are doing right now?
So the strength, I think, very much came from, first of all, me moving and feeling healthier, because the minute you feel healthier, you are able to make better decisions. You're getting the endorphins going. It helps you with your body positivity, with your own confidence. So I think that all helped me. And then also by me helping other people, I started taking other women and men as clients. And a lot of them were going through their own issues. And just by me being there and kind of listening to them, it kind of made me feel that I was stronger and that I could move forward. I had faith in myself, and I did believe in myself, and I know that I'm a hard worker. So that kind of propelled me forward.
Yes. I mean, you really are the king of what you do.
Thank you.
Can you give us 1 or 2 exercises that, you know, you can do at home to hack that feel-good feeling when you're not feeling good, but you need to wake your body up?
Yes, definitely.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
Will you be easy on me?
Yes, I'll be easy, because we'll do it for where it involves everyone else, and it's something gentle.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
perfect. All
Where
right.
to start?
Okay, so let's start on the mat, and we're just going to start with our knees bent, and we're just going to start with a little bit of rotation. So just to warm up the spine, we're going to inhale, take our arm out to the side, and then exhale to bring it back. Other side. Inhale, let the spine rotate. Bring it back. So often we get very linear in our movements, and just by getting the spine to move in different planes is always beneficial for us. And we're going to do 2 more. Inhale, reach. Exhale back. 1 more time. Inhale, reach. Exhale back. And now just roll down and then roll up again, 1 vertebra at a time, bringing the shoulders back. Okay, so should we go onto the mat?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to lie down. I'm just going to take this off. So we're going to lie down and we're going to just do some abdominal work. So let's lie down. We're going to have our hands behind our head. You can either have your legs together or apart, and you're going to breathe in, and then exhale. We're just going to lift up our upper bodies, so working into the abdominals, and then inhale to go back down.
What is this good for?
So this is good for abdominals. We can also use our breath as we work just to kind of get that diaphragm going, and by using our breath helps us to promote a positive gas exchange through the body, oxygenates the blood. Exhale to lift and inhale to return. Now we're going to add rotation. So you're going to breathe in. Exhale, you're going to rotate to the left side, put that left elbow down on the mat, and then inhale, go all the way back down. So we're firing up into the side obliques now, the side abdominals, and then we go back down. And you want to make sure that your pelvis stays nice and neutral, but you're looking fantastic. And then bring it back down. 3 more. Exhale to lift up. Inhale to go back down, and 2 more. Using those obliques, nice. Bring it back up last time. Exhale to lift. You're starting to feel a little bit there. And
I know why you're the instructor and I'm not.
And then bring it up, but you're doing very well. And then come all the way back down.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So from there, we can turn onto our sides.
Okay.
Okay, so it's also important to work the side body and not always just work one way.
Yes.
So we're going to straighten our legs. You can elongate, or you can have a little pillow with your underneath arm. And then you're going to lift your top leg up and then just flex it down. So we're just working into the side glutes, lift it and lower it, maintaining that pelvis nice and still, and lower it down.
And this wakes up your legs.
That wakes up your legs, wakes up your hips. So it's hip mobility as well as hip strengthening.
I love that. Thank you so much, Lisa. I love hip exercises in particular.
Good,
and I
good.
think hip exercises are a great way for knowing whether you are struggling to move forward in life or not.
Yes.
When your hips are not flexible,
yes,
it's telling you something, that it's time to move forward,
yes,
to perhaps open up your business and take that risk that Lisa has done.
Be adventurous and take
Be
the leap.
adventurous.
Yes,
there we go.
absolutely.
I hope that Lisa's unwavering dedication to her vision, coupled with her innovative approach to fitness and wellness, serves as an inspiration and aspiring all entrepreneurs out there. Stay tuned as Bolan Zwane is going to give you a few tips to reset your wardrobe. We're now sitting down with one of the co-founders of renowned clothing brand Nje, revered for quality fabric, excellent fit, and exceptional service. Please help me welcome Bolan Zwane, who's joining us to showcase their latest collection and explore how to reset your style for 2024. Welcome to Afternoon Express.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Now, I'm loving this cacophony of color, but before we get into these beautiful garments, I know that there's a special story behind your logo and your name, so please share that with us.
Okay, so Nje means just as you are, or just as is, loosely translated. It comes
Just
from
as you are.
Yes, the Nguni language is Zulu or Xhosa. It just means Nje. I'm just chilling. Nje.
I love that. I am.
I am who I am, just as I am. So, like you said, there's a very diverse range. There's a lot of color. There are a lot of different types of fabrics. So, our brand Nje is about diversity. It's about versatility. And we said, what better way to express that versatility as simply as Nje, just as you are. So that's where the name of the brand comes from.
What was the moment that catalyzed this for you? Like, at what point in your life did you go together with your partners, we've got to do this brand? What was that defining moment?
Sure, that's a very good question. I've had quite a few defining moments. So I have always loved clothing. I have loved styling different pieces and different types of looks. But I think the defining moment was when I moved to Cape Town from Joburg about 9 years ago. I moved here for a corporate job. And just the vibrancy of manufacturing in Woodstock and meeting people who really know how to manufacture and construct garments really well.
Yeah.
And me and my team and my partner, we learned how to make the garments in Cape Town. So I think that was a defining moment where we realized we can actually do this. We made a few garments, about 8 styles. We built an online store ourselves, and then it just took and it flew with family and friends.
Are you saying that you didn't have experience before?
I didn't. My experience is in financial services. I've been working in financial services for 18 years.
And then you pressed reset.
And then I pressed reset.
Okay, so tell me about your pieces. I'm loving what I see right at the end. What is that?
Okay,
it's so beautiful.
I mean, I can't say this is my favorite piece because they're all my favorite pieces that I created. This is called the Robin Hood. And you can see this type of fabric. Feel it. It's like a raincoaty type of fabric. So it's really good cross-seasonally. For summer and for winter. Robin Hood, because it's got a little bit of a fairy tale kind of spin, and the hood.
And the hoodie,
And the hoodie, which is detachable, actually. So another great aspect about each of our designs is that you can wear them in many different ways. So it's perfect for resetting. One garment, multi-wear, right?
Beautiful.
So you have a long lifespan, which talk to sustainability because you can wear this thing in many different ways. So
you can detach.
You can detach that. If it's a little bit too extravagant for you, you can detach it and make it a little bit more simple. And it's a dress and it's a coat. And you can wear it with some leggings, you know?
Or some like high boots.
Or some high boots.
Too cute.
It's
and then
lovely.
I love this. I mean, I think that every person should have camo in their wardrobe.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing with camo is that people are afraid to venture, right? So I want to talk to us about resetting in terms of going out of your comfort zone to try styles that you admire on other people, but you are too afraid to try it on yourself. How do we get there?
I love the question because when we actually were building the brand, we said, my partner and I, we said, look, we want a brand that will create garments where, you know, when you flip through a fashion magazine and you see the most outrageous garments and you're like, oh my gosh, I love it.
Yes.
But you can't see yourself in it. So we wanted people to say, I see this, I love it, and I can see myself in it because of the functionality. So that you transform, but sometimes the transformation is not too wild. It must be something that's modest and you must tread lightly. In an image-related business, there's a lot of psychology that you deal with. So with transforming and resetting, you need to tread lightly sometimes.
I so love that you mentioned that. I want to ask you about this cute set. And then, of course, I love these hangers.
Yes.
Your little pigeons.
Yes, so
Very
my business
sweet.
partner, Banele, he designed those. So they're very practical and obviously they stand for our brand.
Is this a shorts or skirt?
This is a shorts. So culottes,
awesome.
right?
Yes.
I don't know what generation you're from, but I'm an 80s baby, so I was born in 82, and we loved culottes, right?
Absolutely.
You played sports and culottes, and I thought, why don't we give this a flirtatious, playful spin for a lady? Because I think the biggest misconception is that older ladies, or maybe ladies that are fuller in figure, don't want to look sexy or feel sensual. They also want to wear short things. So this is a really nice length.
Love that.
It's just by the knee, and it almost looks like a skirt, but it's short, so it's quite flirtatious. So it shapes you really well, and then the jacket over here is quite forgiving. I see these sort of fits a lot in Europe, and I really love them because it sort of shapes you over here. We've created that with this panel. So we don't have one panel of fabric because then it just sort of sits. And we've sort of created that shape, but it's still a little bit of a box shape. So you can eat as much as you want.
I love that.
And not see what's in there. So
that is awesome.
It definitely is timeless. I mentioned the 80s. This one over here, this kind of, I modernized this piece. My mother used to own it when she was 16 years old, and she was born in 1957.
What? Oh, wow.
So the millennials can't probably even grasp 1957, right? And what we did, we modernized it by using different colors and different types of fabric.
Yeah.
And then we also just applied our logo there.
Beautiful.
It glows in the dark, but in the day it's matte.
Look at you, all on trend. How absolutely exciting. It's so lovely to have met you. I love the story behind your brand, and I also love the heart and emotion and the authenticity that comes to all these pieces. I can actually feel its palpability. It's beautiful. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the success. Well, there you go, from bold statement pieces to timeless classics. Nje, I am continues to be and push the boundaries of fashion, inviting us to explore new realms of self-expression and our individuality. I hope that this has inspired you to be more adventurous with your fashion choices. If you love a good burger, then we are about to ignite your cravings because we're resetting and taking the humble burger to new heights by making a taco burger, which has been going viral for a very good reason. It is delicious. But the secret to making the perfect burger always lies in the cheese that you use. And today we are using Clover's individually wrapped slices, which will give you all the flavor plus the perfect melt.
My mouth is so busy. What have you done?
You talk my language. I love cheese. Love, 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 love cheese.
Me
you can
too.
never have enough cheese.
Never. And when it comes to a burger, cheese is always a highlight. But let's talk about some of the other ingredients we have today. So, of course, a burger has a meat component or an alternative to meat, something protein-based. We've got some fresh avocado, tomatoes, gherkins. A bit of acidity, always good on a burger. We've got some seasoning and we've got some sauce.
Okay.
All the sauce. And then, of course, we've got Clover cheese. Now, I love these because they are, of course, individually wrapped.
Yes.
Perfect for burgers, sandwiches, snacking.
Lunch boxes.
Lunch boxes, great addition. So that's, of course, going in. And then we've got our wraps. So let's get into it, Z.
Okay.
Now, what I love about this is that you can enjoy a takeout dinner homemade.
I love that.
So it gives you a bit more control over what ingredients are actually going into it, which is what I love.
Okay, so I thought you were going to put that like on top of the burger, but no, you're mixing it all in.
So I've got
the secret.
I've got some hot English mustard.
Okay.
And that's going to work as two things. It's going to give the patty a nice flavoring.
Yes.
Some zing, some bite, and it's also going to help bring that meat together.
Okay.
And then, of course, we're going in with some seasoning. I've got some pepper and I've got some smoked salt. You can use regular salt.
I was about to ask what kind of salt is that because it looks like it's darker, yeah.
Give that a smell. It's delicious. It adds another smoky sort of vibe to this. And we're just going to gently mix this together. Just bringing it all together, making sure that mustard is nicely, evenly distributed. Give it a nice stir. And then I'm going to put that aside for a second. And then I'm going to start by switching on my pan. There we go. Now we need a nice sizzle on this because we want that patty to really get that char and represent the effect that you would have on a flame grilled burger patty.
Love that.
So I've got some tortilla wraps here. Okay, and then what you're going to do is just scoop sort of about 2 or 3 tablespoons of your mince.
Oh, wow.
And then you're going to press that into your wrap, making sure to leave about 2 centimeter border around. And we're going to spread that nice and evenly and thin. And then we're going to put some oil into our pan and get this cooking. So the most important thing is to do it meat side down. So we're going to start off by placing our meat.
So it's important for the meat to be kind of like combined. And, and you do that, you said, with your mustard.
Yes.
Okay. I know that they've got the Gouda cheese and the cheddar cheese. Are you going to be using both or do you use just one?
I'm going to be using cheddar today.
Okay.
Just because I love the flavor of the cheddar.
Yes.
And, but...
you could use both.
You could use both.
Absolutely.
For sure. I think they both, in their own right, have different flavors.
For sure.
So you can use whatever's, good for you. I'm just going to loosen the meat at the bottom here.
And obviously you've got to do that in a non-stick pan, right?
Non-stick pan all the way. And then let's see if I can get this right. There we go.
Wow, well done.
One shot. So we're just going to leave it in the pan for a little bit just to crisp up the bottom. But I think we're actually good to go. I had quite a nice heat on my pan. So I'm just going to transfer this to my plate. Now, this is the fun part, see. This is the fun part. This is where we get to play a little bit. And you can be as creative as possible. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of mayo.
Okay.
Just spread that nicely. I've actually still got a bit of mustard on my spoon, which I'm not mad at because I love mustard.
Me too.
A little bit of tomato sauce. I think that's a staple with burgers and chips. You've got to have some tomato sauce. And then for some freshness, I think, especially when you're getting the kids involved. And this is what makes it fun. So we've got some avo, we've got some tomato, and then, of course, we've got our Clover cheese. So we're going to use the cheddar today. And a bit of a wipe. And this is what I love. How convenient is this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? It's so convenient, and it's also nice to portion. I always, struggle with grating cheese and cutting cheese. With this, you don't have to worry about that. So I'm going to go for
Perfectly sized.
Perfectly sized, super thin, which is what I love. And it's actually just so creamy and beautiful. And then I'm just going to go with some more of that smoky salt.
That looks good.
Some pepper. Fold it in half and
Voila.
Voila.
Wow. If you want the freedom to make yourself a delicious food that comforts the soul, then you have to save this taco burger recipe for the weekend. And like Jay, you got to go all out. You can get this full recipe at afternoonexpress.co.za.
Clover cheese is for those who love life, where everything falls into place and melts away our cares, adding joy and stretching our imagination. Clover cheese, perfectly crafted.
Made with love by Clover.
The election is around the corner, and voting is crucial in a democratic society as it allows citizens to actively participate in shaping their government. Can you both agree that voting empowers you?
For sure. I mean, a clear memory that sticks out for me is 2009. We had the national elections in 2009, and I think it was around April. I was in matric at that time.
Yeah.
So all my friends were getting driver's licenses, getting cars, but they got to vote that year. Everyone who had turned 18 early.
Yeah.
And I remember how sad and disappointed I felt, fear of missing out. And I remember following that, the 2014 election, when I stood in that line and how great it felt.
Yeah.
So
and have you voted ever since?
I voted ever since. I make it a point. It's very important.
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of issues that are dear to me that I feel strongly about that are not being heard or not being addressed. And I feel like it is my duty as a citizen to make my mark and make it count.
Absolutely. And also as a South African where, democracy was fought for, I think it's important the onus is on us to make sure we go and use our vote. Ali, you shaking your head?
Yeah, I agree, because we cannot take it for granted. 2009, I had FOMO, but I was in my first year of varsity, if I remember correctly. But trust me, I was almost the first person in the line the next opportunity I got to vote. So much so, I was so excited, I took a picture. I'll see if I still have that picture with the policeman, with my ID, with my my ink on my finger, and I was like, yeah, I did it. That is how exciting and empowering it felt. It just felt like I had a new lease on life, and now I can finally be able to have a say as to what happens in the country. I mean, last week we spoke about you can't complain and you can't compliment if you do not vote.
Thanks, guys. I absolutely love seeing the joy and importance of how much voting means to you too, and to me too as well. So voting is not just the right, it is a powerful tool that shapes the future. So let your voice be heard, and remember that every vote counts in building a better, inclusive future for all. But now it's time to say goodbye. We will catch you next week, and don't forget to catch the repeat of this show on Sunday at 8:30 a.m. Stay safe and see you next Tuesday.
Clover cheese is for those who love life, where everything falls into place and melts away our cares, adding joy and stretching our imagination. Clover cheese, perfectly crafted.
Made with love by Clover.
Another feel-good production.